No one expected to hear a voice coming from the ruins. The crash site was quiet, filled with smoke and broken metal. Rescue workers were ready to bring out only bodies. But then, a faint cry stopped them in their tracks. Against all odds, at least one person was still alive. It was supposed to be a normal flight. The Air India aircraft took off with dozens of passengers, each with a different story, a different destination. But somewhere along the journey, something went terribly wrong. Reports say the plane suddenly lost contact with air traffic control just minutes before it was expected to land. Moments later, it vanished from the radar. Eyewitnesses near the crash site spoke of a loud explosion followed by a fireball in the sky. Many thought it was a bomb or a missile at first, but soon it became clear. It was an airplane going down. The wreckage was found scattered across a remote area, difficult to reach by road. Trees were broken, the earth scorched, and pieces of the plane were thrown across the field like paper in the wind. Local people were the first to respond. They rushed to the scene, some barefoot, others with just flashlights and courage. But what they saw made even the bravest go silent. The front of the plane was destroyed. The tail section had broken off completely. Smoke filled the air, and the heat from the burning fuel kept them back until firefighters arrived. Police confirmed the crash late in the evening. Soon, the area was covered with emergency teams, ambulances, police vans, fire trucks, and military vehicles. Drones were flown over the crash site to check for survivors, but with every passing hour, hope was fading. No signs of life were seen. Families waiting at the airport were told to prepare for the worst. Grief began to spread like wildfire. Air India officials called it one of the darkest days in the airline's history. They promised full support to the victims' families and announced that the cause of the crash would be investigated immediately. The government also ordered a high-level inquiry, and senior aviation officials were rushed to the site. The weather at the time of the crash was not ideal. Heavy winds and low visibility may have played a role, but experts say it's too early to say for sure. The flight's black box, containing vital information about what happened in the cockpit, is still missing. Until it's found, many questions remain unanswered. But just as the world began to mourn and fear the worst, something unexpected happened. A faint sound from beneath the wreckage, barely a whisper, changed everything. Rescue teams had been searching for hours. The light was fading, and smoke still rose from parts of the broken plane. The air smelled of burning metal and fuel. Most of the bodies had already been pulled from the wreckage, and every face around was filled with sorrow. It seemed like no one had made it out alive. Many rescuers had started to give up hope. But then, something changed. A faint sound came from a twisted part of the middle section of the plane. At first, the rescue workers thought it was just metal creaking. But then, it happened again. A soft cry. Barely a whisper. A weak, trembling voice. One rescuer stopped and called for silence. Everyone froze. Again, they heard it. A voice, small and broken, calling out for help. Within seconds, everything turned into action. The team rushed to the spot and began clearing the debris, carefully. Every second felt like an hour. They didn't want to cause another collapse. They moved slowly but with purpose, their hands shaking from both fear and hope. After nearly half an hour of digging, they finally saw a hand. It was moving. A child-sized hand, reaching out from the darkness. It was a young girl, barely conscious, covered in dust and blood. Her clothes were torn, and her face was bruised. But she was alive. She had survived the crash. Rescue workers gently pulled her out, wrapping her in a warm blanket. One of the medics whispered, "You're safe now," as she was carried to the waiting ambulance. Paramedics worked fast. Her pulse was weak, but steady. Her breathing was shallow. She couldn't speak, but tears rolled down her cheeks. The rescue team tried to comfort her. She was given oxygen and fluids, and then rushed to the nearest hospital by helicopter. Doctors at the hospital say she has multiple injuries, but they believe she will survive. She is now under close observation, surrounded by a team of specialists. Police confirmed that she is the first known survivor of the crash. Her name has not been released yet, and no family members have come forward so far. Authorities are trying to match her with the flight's passenger list to identify her relatives. There is also hope that this discovery might lead to more survivors, hidden in the wreckage. The news spread like wildfire. Social media lit up with prayers and shock. People from around the country shared her story, calling her the miracle girl. Messages of hope and support poured in from every corner. Even government officials, celebrities, and world leaders reacted to the news, praising the courage of the rescue team and praying for the girl's recovery. For many people who had already started mourning the victims, this was a small light in the darkness, a single life saved, a tiny voice that refused to go silent. Some are calling it a message that even in the worst tragedy, hope can still be found. But the discovery also raised many questions. How did she survive when no one else did? Was she wearing her seatbelt? Was she seated near an emergency exit? Did she get trapped in a part of the plane that stayed intact? Experts say these answers could help improve airline safety in the future. But for now, the focus remains on her survival and the search for more signs of life. Rescue efforts have now doubled. Search teams are going back through every inch of the wreckage. Drones, sniffer dogs, and thermal scanners are being used to detect heat signatures. The crash site, once silent and cold, is now full of urgency again. People are holding their breath, waiting for another miracle. For the rescue workers who pulled her out, this is the moment they'll never forget. One of them said, "We've seen so much death today, but hearing that tiny voice gave us strength. She gave us hope. And for a grieving nation, that hope might be the beginning of healing." As the news of the survivor spread across the country, the mood at the crash site quickly changed. What had felt like a hopeless mission now carried a new sense of urgency. The rescue teams, who had been working through exhaustion and grief, found a second wind. Their tired faces lit up with determination. If one person had survived, maybe others were still waiting to be found. Search efforts grew stronger. More emergency teams arrived overnight. Heavy lights were set up to light the area, turning the crash site into a glowing circle of movement and noise in the middle of darkness. Drones flew low over the area, scanning every part of the wreckage with heat sensors. Special dogs trained to find people under rubble were brought in. Some sniffed at areas that hadn't yet been touched. Every possible sign was followed, every small noise investigated. But while hope stayed alive, the challenges grew tougher. The crash site was in a remote area with poor roads and rough terrain. Some parts of the wreckage had fallen deep into the forest and others were stuck in muddy ground. Rain began to fall lightly, turning the soil into thick, sticky mud. Equipment got stuck, and rescue teams struggled to keep their footing. Still, no one gave up. For them, every second mattered. Back in the city, hospitals were on alert. Doctors were ready for any more survivors that might be found. Meanwhile, police and aviation experts began collecting evidence from the site. A large part of the investigation now focused on the aircraft's black box, the flight data recorder and cockpit voice recorder. These devices are designed to survive extreme crashes and hold key information about the final moments before disaster. Searchers believe the black box might be buried deep under the debris or lost in a part of the forest, but they are confident it will be found. Officials from India's Aviation Safety Agency, along with investigators from the airline and aircraft company, have joined the effort. International aviation experts have also been called to assist. Everyone wants to understand what caused this tragic crash. So far, many questions remain. Was it a technical failure, pilot error, bad weather, or something else completely? One senior investigator said, "We cannot jump to any conclusions until we examine the black box. Right now, our focus is on recovery and support. Nearby villages have become temporary support stations. Local people have opened their homes and hearts, offering food, water, and shelter to rescue workers and families of passengers. A school was turned into a help center where family members gather every day, waiting for any update. Some hold pictures of their loved ones. Others sit in silence, eyes fixed on the doors, hoping to hear their names called. Air India has arranged counselors and support teams at these centers. Volunteers sit beside grieving parents and siblings, offering kind words and emotional support. It's a heavy time for everyone involved. And yet, the miracle of the little girl continues to inspire the entire operation. The government has promised a full and open investigation. In a press briefing, a minister said, "We will leave no stone unturned. Every detail will be examined. Every family deserves answers." The Prime Minister also released a message, expressing sadness for the lives lost and praising the bravery of those still working at the scene. Meanwhile, aviation authorities have ordered safety checks on similar aircraft in the Air India fleet. Flights of the same model are being examined to prevent further accidents. Passengers across the country are nervous, asking questions about airline safety. Many wonder if more could have been done to stop this disaster before it happened. The spotlight is now also on the training of pilots, the condition of aircraft, and the quality of emergency procedures. Past accidents are being re-examined for patterns. Airlines are being told to improve safety drills and crew readiness. It's not just about one crash anymore. It's about preventing the next one. But beyond the facts and figures, there's a deep emotional side to the investigation. For every broken piece of metal, there's a human story behind it. A mother who never came home, a son who was returning from college, a father on a business trip. Each loss is a heartbreak, and each family wants the truth. And while the search for that truth continues, one survivor, still resting in a hospital bed, is holding on. Her story has become a symbol of strength, a reason for rescuers to keep digging, a reminder that even in the darkest hours, life can still shine through. As morning broke over the crash site, the first rays of sunlight touched the twisted remains of the aircraft. Rescue workers stood silently for a moment, paying quiet respect to the lives lost. But even in that silence, the world around them was changing. Across the country, and even across the globe, people had begun to react. The story was no longer just about a plane crash. It was about pain, survival, and the search for answers. Government leaders quickly responded. The Prime Minister expressed deep sorrow and promised complete support for the families. He said the entire country stood with them in grief. In his speech, he praised the courage of the rescuers and called the young survivor a light in the middle of this darkness. Other officials visited the crash site, walking through the wreckage with bowed heads, visibly moved by what they saw. They met with families, hugged crying mothers, and listened to the voices of those still waiting for news. Air India, shaken by the crash, released several statements. They called the event a tragedy beyond words and promised full cooperation with the investigation. The airline has set up a special fund for the victims' families and announced they would cover all funeral costs and medical expenses for survivors. Their spokesperson admitted that more must be done to restore public trust. Already, the airline has begun internal safety reviews, checking every aircraft in service and planning retraining sessions for all crew members. Around the world, aviation safety experts offered to help. Countries with past crash experience sent condolences and assistance. International media picked up the story, sharing the tale of the young survivor and showing pictures of the crash site. The image of the girl, wrapped in a silver rescue blanket, being carried by a firefighter, has been printed in newspapers, shared online, and touched millions of hearts. She has become a silent voice for the many who didn't make it. Families of the passengers are now at the center of the recovery. Some are angry, some are broken, others are simply numb. They wait in hospitals, shelters, and hotels near the site, clinging to photos, hoping for closure. Many still do not have the final confirmation they need. DNA testing is being used to identify bodies that were too badly damaged. It's a painful process, and each new match brings fresh tears. But it is also part of the healing. Memorials have begun to appear. People are lighting candles outside Air India offices and airports. Messages of love are being left on walls. Schools have held moments of silence. Even children are sending hand-drawn cards to the hospital where the survivor is recovering. Some say things like, "You are strong, and don't give up. Give." These gestures, though small, have created a wave of compassion across the country. But the path forward is not just emotional, it's also legal and technical. Investigators are building a timeline of the final minutes of the flight. They are looking at weather patterns, pilot communications, aircraft history, and satellite data. Every piece of information matters. Families want to know why their loved ones were lost, and the public wants assurance that it won't happen again. Already, safety rules are under review. Airlines may now be forced to improve training, add safety devices, or update older aircraft. Airport response times are being questioned. Calls are rising for better equipment, stronger communication systems, and quicker rescue coordination. This crash may lead to changes that will save lives in the future. In the middle of all this, the little girl who survived continues to fight. Doctors say she is stable but still under careful watch. Her body is healing slowly and her mind is still in shock. Counselors are helping her process what happened. She hasn't spoken much yet, but she opens her eyes when someone holds her hand. Nurses say she reacts to kindness and music. She is not alone. She is surrounded by care, love, and hope. There's also another question on many people's minds. Who is she? So far, no confirmed family member has come forward. She may have lost everyone on that flight. If so, she could become not just a survivor, but an orphan of this tragedy. Officials are working hard to find relatives. If no one is found, she will likely be cared for by the state or placed with a loving family. In either case, many people have already offered to adopt her, calling her India's miracle child. This story, filled with heartbreak, has also shown the strength of the human spirit. From the fearless rescuers to the doctors, from grieving families to total strangers sending prayers, people are showing that even in tragedy, humanity stands together. And sometimes, that unity begins with the smallest voice crying out from beneath the rubble. As the investigation continues, as the rescue winds down, and as funerals begin, one thing remains clear. This was not just a crash, it was a moment that shook the nation. It brought tears, questions, action, and reflection. And through it all, the world watched one tiny heartbeat continue in the middle of ruin. Because sometimes survival isn't just about living, it's about giving others a reason to keep going.